O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the share. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Premananda, Hari Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam jai. So we're doing, we're still in Canto Part 1, Canto 3, Part 1, and now we're in the last chapter of this canto. And it's the first verse. Oh, I'll sit down, Mike. Okay. So it's the title of the chapter is Manifestation of Brahma from Gaudakshay Vishnu, chapter 8, text 1. Is it there?
Yeah.
Matre uvacha Satse vaniyo patapura vanso Satse vaniyo patapura vanso Sevaniyo patapura vanso Yavukapalo bhagavat pradana Yavukapala bhagavat pradana Yavukapalo bhagavat pradana Lokapalo bhagavat pradana Bahuvithe harchita kirti malam Bahuviti hajita kirti malam Bahavite hajita kirti malam. Let's see that again. Bahuvite hajita kirti malam Bahuvite hajita kirti malam Pade pade nittanasya avikshnam Pade pade nityanayas aviksham Pade pade nittanayasya avikshnam Pade pade aviksham It's A-B-H-I-K S-N-N-N. Pade pade nittan ayasya avikshnam Pade pade nutanasya avikshnam. So, I'll just go to the word for word. Does anyone else want to chant? Yes, do you have a question? Yeah. Okay. You want to go ahead? Okay. Satsevaniyo Bhattapura Vamso Lokapalo Bhagavat Pradhanam No, you go ahead. Matyayo Vacha Satsevaniyo Patapura Vamso Yalokapalo Bhagavat Pradana Bahuviteha Jita Kirtimalam Pade Pade Nanyaspa Dikshan Sunam Maitreya Vacha Satse Yo Patapura Vanso Yalo Kapalo Bhagavat Pradana okay. I'll do the word for word. Maitreya Uvacha. Shri Maitreya Muni said. Sat Sevan Niya. Satsam Praniya. Sat Seva Niya. Worthy to serve the pure devotees. Pata. Oh, certainly. Puru Vamsa. The descendants of King Kuru. Yat. Because. Lokapala. The kings are. Bhagavat Pradana. Chiefly devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bahuvita. You are also born. Iha. In this. Ajita. The Lord. Who is unconquerable. Kirti Malam. Chain of transcendental activities. Pade Pade. Step by step. Nutana Yasi. Becoming newer and newer. Abhishnam. Always. I forgot something. That's what I was saying. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Narayanam Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Deving Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayamudiriye. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, we should first offer our respectful obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan. To Narayan, Rishi, the supremmost human being. To Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. To Srila Vyasadeva, the author. And to Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master. Namaham Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi. Lord of Lani Pachaya Devi Sesha. Sundavadi Prasthika Desaka. So I should have started the Sanskrit then. Anyway, here's the translation. The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidura, the royal dynasty of King Kuru is worthy to serve the pure devotees because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. You were born in that family, and it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, are becoming newer and newer at every moment. Please repeat. The great sage Maitreya Muni said to Vidura, the royal dynasty of King Puru is worthy to serve the pure devotees. Because all the descendants of that family are devoted to the personality of Godhead. You are also born in that family. And it is wonderful that because of your attempt, the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are becoming newer and newer at every moment. Purport by His Divine Grace, Isi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya thanked Vidura and praised him by reference to his family glories. The Puru dynasty was full of glories of the personality of Godhead, full of devotees of the personality of Godhead, and was therefore glorious, because they were not attached to impersonal Brahman or to the localized Paramatma, but were directly attached to Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. They were worthy to render service to the Lord and His pure devotees. Because Vidura was one of the descendants of that family, naturally he engaged in spreading wide the ever-new glories of the Lord. Maitreya felt happy to have such a glorious company as Vidura. He considered the company of Vidura most desirable because such association can accelerate one's dormant propensities for devotional service. So you might wonder about the Puru dynasty, the Puru dynasty goes back way before the other dynasty, and is discussed more elaborately in the 9th canto, and also there's in the 11th canto, I think it's chapter 26 or 27, it's called the Aila Gita, and it's about King Maharaj Puru. And so there is a connection between the Maharaj Puru and the other dynasty. These stories have gone back so far. And I mean, actually, in a few more verses, it's going to discuss just how far back this all goes. And so Maitreya, though, he not only had he just left the association of Krishna and Uddhava, where basically Krishna was speaking the Uddhava Gita, which is more elaborately described in the 11th canto. It's briefly mentioned in the 3rd canto. But prior to that, his spiritual master was Parasara, and Parasara and Brihaspati heard from a sage, his name, it's up here, that's something, I hadn't heard of him before. Sankyayana Rishi, and he had asked Sanat Kumara to explain to him what he had heard from Sankarshan, or Anantasesha, at a certain point, and I believe it's part of the partial dissolution. His Kumaras went to Vasudev's, and he was resting on the bed of Anantasesha, and they began to inquire from him, and he opened his eyes just slightly. So then this is an Antasesha. We call him Sankash. We call him by a different name here. But anyway, he speaks the original Bhagavatam, and it begins to expand and expand and expand. Then Sanat Goswami speaks to this other rishi. That rishi then is approached by Parasara and Brahaspati, and they receive what they heard, and each time it's expanding and growing, and the nectar is becoming more, it's churning, it's becoming newer and newer, fresher and fresher. And then Parasara explained it to Maitreya. And then Parasara is the father of Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva heard from Narada Muni, and Maitreya Muni is a friend of Vyasadeva. And he had heard the Bhagavatam from Parasara, but yet we found out in the previous chapters that until he actually was in the association of Krishna, overhearing, somehow or other, Ajnana Srikriti, he got the chance to be there when Krishna was about to depart the world, and he wanted to explain to Uddhava some very important instructions, and he wanted him to go to Badari Ashram. He wanted him to stay behind and preach to Narayan Rishi and explain to them what's going on. And Maitreya Muni just happened upon it. And he already was a devotee, and he had heard from Parasara Muni, but he was tinged with Jnana Bhakti. So until you reach the pure stage, which is no mixing of jnana or karma or any other types of material desires, once that's finally cleaned out and it's pure devotion, pure bhakti, then and only then will you see Krishna, like it's described when Brahma is in deep meditation and he was performing tapasya, and he still had some material tinges, so he couldn't quite see. He could see the universe, and then, what are you doing? He could see the universe, and then slowly, as he became more and more purified, he could see Narayan. And then, when he finally reached the purest level of bhakti, he could see Krishna from behind Narayan. And that's the Brahma Samhita. Similarly, we are in a situation where if we look outside, we can see a galaxy or parts of it. But we're not seeing Krishna, although we're understanding that this is all connected to Krishna. This is his Virata Rupa, and we are seeing the Archa-Vigraha form, and we are seeing Krishna through sound vibration. So it's a gradual process to purify our hearts so that to learn how to desire, to put aside our childish thoughts of enjoyment in this material world. Everything in this material world becomes stale. It becomes empty, it deteriorates. It's not ever fresh. It doesn't get newer and newer. It becomes older and older. And, you get some, say you have this thing about a certain type of sweet, some candy or sweet, and if it's not connected to Krishna, at first, oh, it's great, it's fantastic, and then after you've had, a few dozen, you get really bored. Everything becomes boring. You buy a new car, it's great, it's fantastic, it's fresh, it's new, and you get that new car smell in it, and it doesn't take long before it starts to deteriorate. And then there's that little ding from the parking lot, you don't know where it came from. Things gradually start to deteriorate. So, that's the nature of the material world. And it's frustrating for us because we are products of this ever-fresh world, the world of Krishna. We're a part of Krishna. Like Prabhupada used to say, you take the sun. The sun is this huge, self-contained, like nuclear power plant that's lighting the entire universe, heating the entire universe, just the right amount for each place. And there isn't any problem. It doesn't has any difficulties that it's going to, not produce energy today, or there's going to be a power outage in the universe unless it comes to the partial dissolution. And I just want to back up at one point, is that what we're about to hear is about, we've already heard one dissolution and one creation, and that was a complete. I think it was earlier in this chapter or in the second canto. And then, now, in the third canto, we're going to hear a partial dissolution, which means at the end of a day of Brahma. So, and so there are, and the living entity in the partial dissolution remains in the subtle body, the mind, intelligence, and false ego. And they exist there sort of in a stage of, a kind of sleeping state until it's time for Brahma to wake up. And then everything starts to be regenerated, and we start off with the past karma that we had and past desires that we had. And it goes on like this forever and ever and ever and ever, and it gets really stale. It's not pleasurable. Whereas Krishna is constantly increasing and increasing in bliss, in beauty, in love, and it's ever fresh. Like there's a nice little story that Srila Prabhupada told once that was about. It was called Dina Bandhu Dada. So in the Varnashram system, the different orders are the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Sudras. They all have their various responsibilities. One of them for the Brahmin is that he teaches. He doesn't receive a salary, but he gets teaching. So in this one town, there was the teacher on a regular basis. He had to sponsor a festival for the town, and there'd be hundreds or thousands of people coming. And each student at one point would have to contribute. And so now it was this one young student's turn, but he's very poor, comes from a very poor family. So he goes home and tells his mother that my teacher says that I have to now, contribute for this festival. She says, well, son, we're very poor. We can't afford anything. He said, what am I going to do? I have to do something. And she said, well, I've heard. If you go see, you have a brother. His name is Dina Bandhu Dada. He's like a friend. I don't know if she said brother or a friend. He's a friend to everyone. And well, where is he? Well, I think he's in the forest. So he goes out into the forest and he's going, Dina Bandhu! Dina Bandhu, brother Dina Bandhu! I need your help! And then, he says about the child, I have to provide for the Brahmins, my teachers, festival, Dina Bandhu! And then finally, Dina Bandhu shows up. It's Krishna. And he knows what the situation is. And then he says, will you come back tomorrow and I will provide you yogurt, dahi. And so he goes and very excitedly goes back, tells the teacher, yes, my friend Dina Bandhu, he says he can provide yogurt, dahi. And the teacher says, that's very good, first class. So the day of the festival comes, he goes out to the forest, he calls out to Dina Bandhu, and he provides him with one pot of yogurt. He's got to feed hundreds of people. He brings it to the teacher, really enthusiastically, very sweetly, innocently. And the teacher says, what am I going to do with this? I got hundreds of people out here. maybe even 1,000. How am I going to feed everyone with this? Well, that's my friend Dina Bandu. He said, this will be enough. And he said, oh, all right, well, anyway, just put it over there. And as they put it over there, it spilled. So then he picks it up and puts it back on the table. And then they're talking. All of a sudden he notices it filled up again. And then this, but it still doesn't quite get it. And so they put it back there, and then something else happens, it gets knocked over, it spills out again. Put it back on the table, fills up again. This goes on about 3 times. Then the teacher realizes, oh, Dina Pandu, this is Krishna. It's kind of like, you know, Jesus and the loaves of bread, they just keep giving it out, and these keep coming. Yeah, there's a confirmation. So in this way, Krishna is never diminished. Krishna can, his ability to supply is unlimited. You know, like in the Shri Upanishad, the invocations, Om Purnamadapa, Purnamidam, Purnasha, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Kashishyate, Purnameva Kashishyate. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because He's completely, and even though so many units emanate from Him that are all perfect and complete in themselves, He still remains perfect and complete. He never becomes diminished. Like if I get an inheritance and I put $1,000 in the bank account, every time I withdraw $1, it's one less. It doesn't replenish itself. Everything in this material world, every waking up and rising of the sun and then setting of the sun, I get one day closer to death. I begin to deteriorate. All of a sudden, I start having wrinkles. My hair starts changing color. I start to lose the hair. I start to walk differently. And gradually, my youth goes away, and then gradually, my health disappears, and then the soul leaves the body to the next one. So this is the nature of the material world, and you can never create in the material world a situation like Krishna already has provided for us. He's unlimited. The sun is always shining. Prabhupada used to challenge the material scientists. If you think you know so much, and you know so much about the sun, why can't you just make one small sun and have it float over New York City? And that all your energy problems would be taken care of. No one ever took him up on the challenge. I don't wonder why. So there's things like this. So there was a couple of other interesting stories I heard Prabhupada tell the other day. One of them was, this was a stuff where this was about there was a professional reciter. He recited all the pastimes of the Lord, and in the group there was a professional thief. And when he started hearing about this beautiful young boy, and his mother would decorate him with beautiful jewelry, and he thought, wow, this could be a big score. I could just get to know this boy, get some of that jewelry, and I might be able to retire. So he decides he wants to get to Vrindavan. He gets to Vrindavan, and his only qualification to see Krishna is that I really need to see you, Krishna. I want to see you, Krishna. No matter even though it's for a nefarious thing, he's thinking, I want to see Krishna. Just as I'm saying that we are practicing Krishna consciousness, we're practicing Bhakti Yoga, but we're still having some, other things, other little things, family, friends, whatever it is, comfortable life, health, so on, money, bank balance, on and on and on. We all know the story, we all know the score. So, and so the thief is thinking, I need to see Krishna, I want to see Krishna. So Krishna reciprocates and says, oh, hello, welcome to our village. He says, you know, Krishna, you're very, very beautiful. And I can see you have so much jewelry. It's probably pretty heavy for you to carry it. And he's going, that's not a problem. He said, well, you think maybe I could just, you have a lot. You think I could just have a few of those pieces like that one, that one, and that one, that one? He said, oh, no. If I did that, my mother, she would be so angry with me. She may tie me up with ropes. and whatever. So, he says, oh, all right, okay. So, it's because there's something about Krishna. So then he stays there, and he's thinking about but he's always with Krishna, he's always seeing Krishna. He's watching him, lift Govardhan. He watch all these pastimes with the cowherd boys. And he's, really completely enwrapped and caught up in Krishna's pastimes. At one point, Krishna turns to him and says, that request for the jewelry? I'm willing to do that. I'll give you my jewelry. And then the thief says, no, I don't want it. I want to stay here with you. Being with you is much more valuable. There's nothing that compares to you. Your beauty is so wonderful. And, we know how unlimited he is in just the story of the 16,000 wives. These 16,000 wives had been kidnapped by Balmasura. Krishna had to go and deal with that. Balmasura was creating lots of problems. And he kills Balmasura, puts Satyabhama sitting on the back of Garuda with him, after they just took the Parijata flower from Indraloka. And not just the flower, they took the tree. And but then after he kills Balmasura, he liberates the wives, and they're just standing there. What can we do? He says, we'll go back to your fathers. No, we can't go back. They'll never take us back. We're spoiled. We're ruined. Even in the Vedic, Prabhupada says in the Vedic culture that if a woman, a young girl, were to go outside unaccompanied, that would be considered, no one will take her. It's changed now, but due to the Western influences, but so he said, okay, they start saying, please, you must take us. We're begging you, we're taking shelter of you. So he says, all right, I'll take you as my wives. He takes all of them. And it's not like he just went and built one big hall for them all, and they had their little dorm rooms. No, he built a palace for each one of them, each one as opulent as the other, just by thinking. He didn't have to bring in bulldozers and cranes and all get building permit. It was just immediate, beautiful, beautiful palaces embedded in the walls. The marble itself was so beautiful. It's not like this marble. It looked as if there were gems with it, and there were gems actually embedded in a lot of it. And golden filigree everywhere. It was golden floors. Everything was purely opulent, and each wife had that. And some wives sometimes would think, Krishna's been with me now for several months. I'm relishing this so much. I just, I'm wondering how the other wives are tolerating that he's just with me. But meanwhile, he's with every one of them. Every one of them. He's unlimited. Krishna is unlimited. And we here, in this material world, we're confined by the conditions of birth, old age, disease, and death. And we have our enemies, which are envy, lust, greed, anger, so on and so forth. They are constantly the three modes, and then we have these three ropes: ignorance, passion, and goodness. The three ropes that literally have us bound up. So we have an opportunity to cut the ropes and to purify the mind and purify the intelligence, purify. Prabhupada said, once the soul can free his mind, free the intelligence, purify the false ego, you're now seeing Krishna face to face. What's standing between us and Krishna is our mind, our intelligence, the contaminated mind, the contaminated intelligence, contaminated false ego. And then just like Lord Brahma performing tapasya, first we see the universe. We look out our windows, we can see parts of it. I don't know what I'm looking at, but it's quite grand. But then beyond that, then gradually we start to see everything. Then we start to see Narayan, then we see Krishna. And we're home. So that's just a few points. There's a lot going to happen. That it's going to happen pretty quickly. This chapter will go by pretty quickly. You know, I did touch on a little bit. That's part of the other verses, but it just seemed to fit. You know, but this love that Krishna's giving, at first it's like the cure. The cure is the chanting and the hearing, and it's just like if you had jaundice. I happen to have had jaundice, and I can speak from personal experience that if you gave me something sweet, it would taste very bitter. But the cure was to keep, they would give us a little hard rock, hard rock candy. You put that in your mouth, and it felt like the mouth was, the tongue was encrusted with mud, in a sense, because you couldn't taste the sweetness. But slowly, it dissolves the mud. And now we taste the sweetness of Krishna. And Krishna is dancing on the tongue. So, sorry for the little beginning problems with the verse. It's because I forgot to say, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I forgot to be respectful to the Supreme Personality of God and my spiritual master. And for this, I beg forgiveness. Thank you very much. Any questions? No comments?
Well, I wish I had one. It was a very nice class.
I can honestly say without being, the right thing to say, I actually feel, without Srila Prabhupada and the Supreme Personality of God, and seeing these beautiful deities, it's so inspiring. And whatever comes out of my mouth is Srila Prabhupada. It's not me. I'm not that. Once I walk out, I become that other person. The trick is I have to try to keep it Krishna conscious here, Krishna conscious there, Krishna conscious everywhere. Yes.
I guess what comes to mind when I read the verse, the first thing that comes to mind, because he's so qualified, Dura. And in contrast to ordinary, regular us, Kali-Yugites, it's like, I guess you could just elaborate that there is still hope for regular folks, because here he is, he's got so much qualification. My chair is praising him, and then they discuss Krishna Katha.
Right.
So,
one thing.
I guess you said it's the verses of the Prabhupada and the spiritual.
Yeah, it is. But one thing I've been wanting to say for a while, and I keep forgetting, and I've never seen this written, but the fact is that Vidura is Yamaraj. Now Yamaraj is going to see everyone. We've already seen him. We've been in his court. And, he's trying to help us so we don't have to go back and see him. It's you again. I went there. Did you not hear my questions? Did you not hear what Maitreya said? He is giving us a chance. Vidura, maybe out of frustration of seeing the same souls over and over again, he's coming here and asking Maitreya these very powerful questions, and then hearing them from Maitreya. And at first I was always thinking, they said that Maitreya Muni was a Jnana Bhakti, and then he became pure just a few days ago before. But then I found out that he was a really powerful devotee who had personal association with Parasara Muni, and Parasara Muni heard from that other sage, I think it was Sankyayana, and then Sankyayana heard it personally from Sanat Kumara. It's down, and the Sanat Kumara and Ananta Sesh, that all happens at the bottom of the universe, where Gaurudakshaya Vishnu is lying on his bed. And when the other sages heard about it, Sanat Goswami, Sanat Kumar was going to be speaking on behalf of the other Kumars. The other sages all came from the higher planets and they rode down to the lower regions on the mother Ganges. And therefore all their hair was wet. And they all sat and listened.
Yeah. So my Muni was Gyani Bhakta, like, after, I mean, did he change after he met Lord Krishna or after he heard from Parasar? What point did he actually change?
No, it seems to indicate that he was really, absorbed in learning. Like, let's just say, a devotee we see regularly, and he's really studying the Bhagavatam and explaining the Bhagavatam very nicely, and he's really, you can tell that he's really relishing learning all these stories, learning the verses, and explains it very nicely, and then, but he doesn't have real love yet. He's more interested in how much knowledge he has. And then,
What changed him?
yeah,
Yeah, I was just wondering what point that happened. That's really interesting.
yeah.
Because it wasn't like he really could, like, when Lord Krishna was leaving, he was speaking directly to Uddhava, and it just happened that Maitreya was allowed to listen.
Yeah, and they
Just
let him
had
stay.
Had that much qualification. to
Yeah,
do that.
not every, that, and they say it's just by chance, but nothing happens by chance.
Right,
And he's
right.
obviously,
Yeah,
they knew he was, almost, Krishna
He's
knew
there.
he was a good student.
Krishna was giving him that mercy.
He's given him that mercy.
And I like what you said about Yamaraj too, because it seems like Yamaraj must have had a desire to help the conditioned soul. So
Yes.
the Lord made a whole arrangement for him. Is that confirmed somewhere that he could get, cursed? But it must have been a desire that Yamaraj.
But it said he did have a desire to go and preach.
Ah, yeah, that's interesting. Thank you so much.
Because, maybe, I'm just I shouldn't
I
say
think I
that.
heard that somewhere.
But he keeps seeing the same ones over. He knows. And
Yeah.
like there's a story. One of my godbrothers, and he was really fired up. He helped Prabhupada develop a relationship with some very important professors. One of them wrote a book about the devotees that Prabhupada really liked. And one day on a morning walk, I forget what the point was, and the devotee said, "Oh, so you mean like this?" And he goes, "Yes. I've been trying to explain this to you for the last 100 lifetimes, and you still do not understand." And everyone else after the morning walk said, "Wow, Prabhu, you've been with Prabhupada for 100 lifetimes." And he said, "Yeah, but 100 lifetimes, and I still don't get it."
Oh, gosh.
Yes.
That reminds me of when I was just reading in the Bhagavatam, it was talking about how at the time of the dissolution, like all the hellish planets, all these things, I mean, when you read the hellish planets, you're like, you want to reject.
Yes.
I mean, it's so hellish, you can't imagine that there's something like that that we've been through, dragged to the top of this,
Mountain?
well, like a pole or something, and
Yeah.
dragged down
Yeah,
all
oh,
these
yeah, that one,
fritters,
yeah.
Yeah.
And but they were saying how, like, at the end, Seisha becomes disturbed, like it's given the living entity so many opportunities, to take up, the spiritual life and Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
And so then he becomes so angry, then he, gets Lord Shiva to start his dissolution dance and stuff like that. But that's why he becomes angry, and that's why it happens, is because he has given us so much opportunity, and we still don't listen.
Yeah, and that's I'm glad you brought that up, because this is something I've been dealing with, is that the idea of forgiveness, and there's certain situations where I know I'm supposed to forgive, and and on one level I do, but it's really hard to deal with someone that really hurt you.
Right.
I went through something similar recently.
And then I don't always pass the test. Sometimes I do, and sometimes I should. And an innocent thing, and then I kind of like, not actually, I'm just a little maybe curt with the person. Not like I'm like vindictive, but I'm just not really polite, you know.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, I want Krishna to forgive me every day. I come up here and say, I'm sorry about yesterday, but I'll try again better every day. I mean, Krishna's every lifetime, and he never ever stops forgiving us or abandons us. And the other things, like you said with the hell, is that, you know, our Christian background, that you're doomed to hell. You know, and there ain't no liberation from hell. You may get a purgatory, but you know, if you don't get it right, you're going to hell forever. Forever. And that's not, and it seems like forever, like for every hair on the back of a cow, 1,000 lifetimes of suffering. That's pretty long time, you know, so, but that when you think, huh?
It's pretty hellish.
It's really hellish, and it's almost practically close to eternal. It'll feel. But the thing is that that's why when you hear that, you think, well, you know, this guy's really ignorant, and he's, you know, throwing dirt in my face. But I know what his future is, and I gotta, you know, not respond in kind. I don't need to, you know, call him, you know, say something negative towards him or anger. But that's really hard, you know. Well, to speak if it's like family or friends, that's when it really gets difficult. So,
Entangling.
yeah, it's
That's
entangling.
what reminds me. I think, oh, I don't want to be more entangled, so let me go open up the Bhagavatam or something like that. Yeah, because it's scary. Because we still have feelings. It's just we're learning to transcend. You know, it's like we have to transcend it somehow, and we get the university from it.
It's because we're personalists.
Yeah.
You know, we're not impersonalists. So it was, you know, I was trying to think where I just started. It was like Donna Kelly said at the beginning of the class yesterday. I forget what it was in reference to. But she's saying that we're personalists. We're not impersonalists. And then if you know, not getting this thing done on time or communicating, that's what it was. She was upset because they didn't communicate about the verses. She said, "You're just impersonalists." You know, it's, yeah, it was good.
Does everyone know about Lily Pernicial?
What about it?
He is alright. He, sometime or another had taken too much blood pressure medicine and ended up in the ICU in Slidell. Yeah, so anyway, his parents came in and I heard he's doing better. And,
Well, how long ago did that?
that happened Sunday.
Because he's got all this mail for like almost 2 months now,
Oh.
and I've been wanting to. I keep asking Yogi, you know, what's the deal? I'm about to throw it away, but now I'll just save it. See?
I finally got mine.
What I want to know what's the latest with the pure devotee, Krishna.
Krishna.
Krishna, she's still going through her stuff, she's just trying to find a doctor. They did one test and they found nothing, so now they're looking for some other tests.
She's like really disabled.
Well,
Or ill.
she's just weak,
Huh.
and, then update on Alimony.
That's what I want. Why did you let that happen? What? I mean, he's like, you know, the people come here and they just see a bunch of old, you know, not like you look older, but not the women, but all these old men here, and then you have this nice, strong, young man here, and it's huh? Yeah, and then, because of what he said, was it because of, did he advise this?
Chandrasekhar?
Yeah.
Chandra introduced him to them, and that's, on Chandra's defense, I mean, that's what Adi was looking for. He wanted to be in a brahmacharya ashram, he wanted to distribute books, he wants to go on Harinam. Now, if we had gotten our Harinam party back up, you know, then he probably would have stayed. It probably wouldn't have been so bad, but he really was hankering for some young association, you know, that he loved all the old people, you know, and he really liked, you know, liked the association that he had with them. And,
Well, can, you know, after he spends a few weeks or months there, come back and then we have our Harinam and he can go out and do the books and,
He would come back,
I don't know what his thing is, but as of how I know him to be, I mean, when he came to my house, he was like an activist. He wanted to get out a message and, you know, all his, you know, conspiracy theories and all these things. I mean, he was just like full on. You know, we had to just like kind of
What about the
tame him down, you know, read
United
Prabhupada's
States or
books.
Pakistan or what?
No, United States.
Okay.
Calm down, read Srila
yeah,
Prabhupada's
yeah.
books, you know, Shan Hare Krishna goes to the morning program, which he did all of that. He did exactly what he was told to do. He's such a good boy, you know, so,
He is very good.
he, you know, like I told him, you know, maybe you can come back and help your grandpa, put in the fall garden.
yeah. I mean, you know who else is in that group, like, if it's the same group, is our,
Alex.
yeah, his name is, Babaduta Chandra.
I bet Avi will come back very soon when he's ready to do that stuff. We would want to raise a family in Massive City somewhere. You got this place.
Right.
And plus you got family that can help you get established.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think he will eventually too, but, just for now, there's just no
He's lucky.
association for him.
Yeah, he's fortunate that he's still young, didn't have a chance.
But that's exactly my point. There's no association. He's the association for the young people.
Right.
And so is Shruti.
I guess we have to get someone out here to start a group. Track people.
Well, it's just like, you know, Nardapriya and Shriraj, when they went to, Colorado, and then it was time to go to LA, and they're like, come on, Sean. It's like, no, I didn't know, I'm staying here. Staying here where, you know, the kirtan and Harinam.
Is that where you all met in Colorado? You met her in Colorado? Yeah.
She's a man.
Oh.
I know, I just got to know her now. But I know her, fiance. From Denver.
Oh, where is he?
Right now it's in New York.
Oh.
Is he? I don't know. I got a, you know, sometimes I get a phone call the last time you called, remember when you called me? And I said New York, I thought, I'm not sure. I can't remember now.
He's a book distributor?
What is he doing now? He used to go on Harinam a lot, right?
Yeah, he really was. Yeah, he was.
Preaching and college preaching and all those things, right?
Yeah.
Because he was 9 years brahmachari. For, but she could have she was teaching them. We all know his Bhakti Noah. He took a big step. Appreciated.
What's his name?
Not Kirtan. Jai.
Thank you, Prabhu, it was very nice class.
Oh, well, thanks for, you can't do it. They went in an empty room. Oh,
But
probably.
anyway, he sold 50 books the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Oh my God. How did you fish that? Yeah, and he actually got donations?
Yeah.
That's
Over
really good.
$120.
That was good little.
Yeah, he got over $120.
Awesome.
That's really Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh. I think flowers. That's
then he left it there.
Is this on or did he turn it off?
It looks like it's on.
I wish you were there.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, Coach Archer. Oh, Krishna. I did something stupid too. And then I put this G in something else. Well,
I gave them 90 this morning also.
no, yeah, because when I didn't feel good, I guess I grabbed the first one I found. And mine got burned and everything, but this is like good G. It will not happen again.